What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. Took me a good 30 seconds to open my beer and kind of like a lame crack open. I'm gonna have to ask Brian Chiller to edit that out. That was kind of embarrassing. You're not gonna see it. Don't worry, I'll edit it out. It'll seem like I opened the beer like a pro, but really it was just like really pathetic way to open a beer. But anyways, great show for you today. I got Caymen Rasmussen. Oh my God. I knew I was going to screw it up. I even asked him. Cayman, I know you're in the back room, so I apologize. Cayman Rasmussen. That's it. So I'll probably edit that out to it. If not, you can, if I don't edit it out, you can laugh at it. But yes, Cayman is here, one of the most underrated, in my opinion, kayak anglers out there. I don't think he gets the respect and the recognition he deserves, mainly because he lives in Utah. Nothing against Utah, but it's not, the popular like Texas, where everybody it's famous for bass fishing, or Alabama, Guntersville, Florida, and all those, big bass factory states. But nevertheless, the guy is an amazing angler. I give a lot of respect for people and anglers in general, guys, girls that fish out of, the mountain states, Colorado, Utah. And when they go to a grass lake down in the south, or your, when you talk about, Chickamauga, uh, so many lakes that are really completely geographically different from where they live, and they're able to find success. I think that's huge. And I like to take time to highlight, their accomplishments and get all of you out there to get to know these great anglers, because they really are. I give them my props. They have to probably drive longer than anybody else with gas prices going up mountain, the Utah and Colorado, and going somewhere like, down south for a tournament. That's a big commitment. So let's give a lot of credit to those guys and girls that do that. And there's a bunch of them. Catherine Fields, um, got, just to mention one. And I mean, there's so many of them. If I keep going on, I'm sure I'm going to miss out on that. So, anyways, before we start recording, I did a little bit something here. I started a YouTube fishing channel in Spanish. Most of you know I'm from Puerto Rico. My first language is Spanish, as you can tell by me fumbling every word here. And I wanted to do a YouTube channel because I think, first of all, the kayak fishing and fishing in general, YouTube scene is kind of saturated. But I don't see a lot of people, a lot of, or I should say, a lot of Spanish speaking channels teaching people how to bass fish and how to kayak fish. So I figured I'd give it a try and see what comes out of it. If you're interested in watching the YouTube, it will have closed caption, so it'll have subtitles. So if you can't understand what I'm saying, you can still read the subtitles if you click the closed caption settings on your YouTube channel. So go check it out if you want. It's called Remos y Aletas, translated paddle and fin. I know it's the same thing as paddle and fin. I for those of you who don't know, I did have a Spanish speaking podcast here in paddle and fin. And when I talked to Brian, says like, let's just call it paddle and fin in Spanish, which is Remos y Aletas. So go check it out. It's on Instagram. It's on YouTube. I only have one video right now. By the time you listen to this podcast, maybe I'll have a couple of more. But anyways, that's it. Not gonna take too much time away from my guests. We're going to go to quick commercials. Before we do that, shout out to my sponsor, Douglas Rods. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup. Quick commercial from Waypoints, and then we'll be Cayman right in. How you doing, Cayman? Sorry for botching your last name again.
No, you're good. You're good. Everybody does it, so I'm kind of used to it.
But it's kind of like a common trend here I have on my podcast, so I botch everybody's name. But
no, it's all good.
Thank you for blessing the podcast, and man, coming up to my show. Congratulations on your big wins, Cayman. You've done amazing, and I think, like I mentioned in the intro, I don't think you get the respect that you honestly deserve, because like I said, geographically, maybe it's not that popular bass fishing in Utah. But regardless, you have made a name for yourself. You qualified for the 10 last year. You did pretty good. You just recently won the Pro Series at Colorado. I think it's Chatfield Lake in Colorado.
Yes,
and
Chatfield.
You won Chatfield, right? And then you won a couple of local tournaments out there. So tell us, Cayman, what was it? How have you been able to find it? How have you been able to find success in and out of not just Colorado, Utah, but also in southern states where you fished?
Um, I mean, it's really just getting out and getting the new experiences and just learning from it. I mean, just taking everything in and growing from it essentially. I mean, started kayak fishing here just locally. Um, got really into it when I was like 13, 14. Finally got like my first bass set up from my uncle and everything. I started fishing my first tournaments up in Idaho with him off his bass boat, and then picked up a kayak when I was like 17. Joined KFU and just rolled with it from there. And I mean, just basically adapting on the road is just kind of how I've been able to have my success and learning from everything I do to hopefully get better and better.
What's been the key for you to fish? Like, I fishing in Utah and Colorado, and correct me if I'm wrong. That's pretty much, there's no grass lakes over there, right? Like, it's pretty much just
Not really.
rocks.
Basically,
How
yeah. There's a little bit of grass. But I mean, Colorado and Utah, they fish very similar just because they're still both kind of just mountain lakes. But yeah, we were kind of mainly focused on rock points, big drop offs or something like that. But
So
a
when
couple
you've
lakes that,
gone, sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, yeah, I said there's a couple lakes that have grass that are just full of grass, but that's the only thing close that we have, like some of the lakes down south.
So when you go into a, like I said, for example, the KBF 10, which in Florida,
Hmm.
completely the opposite. Only grass, no rocks, pretty much.
Right.
How do you, I mean, how is it that you make that transition? Do you even prepare for it? Do you just wing it? What's your preparation when you go into a lake that has no rocks and it's just grass?
So the first time I ever kind of really experienced that much of a change was when I went down to the national championship in 2019 in Louisiana, Shreveport. We were on Caddo and just full of cypress trees and grass.
No.
I had to start looking at it like just like I do at home, where like a rock point here, I got to look at the trees and the grass just like that. I just kind of try and find the similarities and things, and then just it seems to work out for me. But
And has it been? Have you feel comfortable fishing in those, different lakes that you're not used to? And what success have you found? What have you learned now
yeah,
that you've had the opportunity to fish on those lakes?
oh yeah, I mean, I love exploring new places now more than ever. I mean, it's just opened up a whole new category of lures and techniques and stuff that you can use, and you come back and home to Utah or around here anyways and try and use it, and it's kind of fun anyways. But
Do you qualified last year for the 10, which is not something easy to accomplish, especially when you're
mhm.
fishing out of Utah. Well, how were you able to qualify for the 10, and how did it feel? Just that accomplishment in itself.
I, I mean, overall, it was just awesome. I mean, it's been a kind of like a dream of mine since I started kayak fishing 4 years ago to get to the 10. Um, we qualified out in Clear Lake, California, last year when they hosted the 3 weekend tournament over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Clear Lake, and I took a second, a fifth, and an eighth. And then went down to Shreveport last year for the national championship and did pretty good there. So it got me in. But I mean,
What?
overall, it was
Go ahead.
just awesome.
How did you feel when you found out you qualified for the 10?
I was ecstatic. I guess I'm kind of more of like just a chill, mellow guy, so I probably wasn't hooting and hollering. But I mean, inside, I was ecstatic.
And how did it feel being staying at the same house? Because you all staying at the same house, correct?
Yep, yep,
How did it
yeah.
feel staying at the same house with some of the best anglers really out there in the nation?
I mean, it was just kind of a reality of how far I've come in the sport and have grown in my skills, anyways. I mean, but it was awesome to meet those guys and kind of get to know them, and you know, essentially to call them friends or just be able to walk up and talk to them now at the next tournament I see them at or something like that.
Did you learn anything talking to them that kind of blowed your mind as like, oh man, I didn't know that's like like opening a new door or something like that? Anything in particular, or was it pretty much the same knowledge that you already had?
Um, I mean, you kind of see like everybody's like style of fishing, and you can kind of pick up different skills from that. I mean, I don't really remember anything particular that was like mind blowing, but I mean, it was like, oh, it's like that's a different way to look at that. Just how they fish a certain technique or something like that. But
Did you ever, at any point, and I'm assuming, especially when we're talking about crankbaits and treble hook baits, but any of the baits that you used over there in Colorado and Utah,
mhm.
that were you like using in down in Florida and Cattle Lake, or were you completely like brand new lures that you hardly used, just knowing
Yeah,
that just grass and stuff like that?
it's not that much different. I mean, of course, you got to throw more weedless baits, something like that. I mean, one of them when I was on Lake Cypress for the tan down in Florida, we were throwing jerk baits, and there was a lipless crankbite, but I never got that. I just threw a jerk bait, and then the tournament last weekend, I won on a jerk bait. So, I mean, back here, I was using the Megabass Vision 110 Plus, and out there, I was just using the regular Vision 110, but just because it's shallower over the grass, and over here, we're trying to get deeper down next to those rocks.
Is there like a big investment as far as money goes when you're like, okay, crap, I have to buy now this whole set of lures that I wouldn't really buy if I'm in Utah?
There kind of is. I mean, just because you gotta adapt a little bit, but I mean, for the most part, you can make a couple tweaks, get the right hooks or whatever it is to make something weedless to go through grass or something like that. There's not I wouldn't say a big investment, but I mean, you could spend a lot of money on it if you wanted to totally change everything.
Oh yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole.
Oh yeah.
Definitely, you can tumble down it real quick. So let's talk a little bit about your recent win at the Pro Series
Mhm.
here in Colorado, and I get Chatfield Lake is the name of the lake, correct? Am I saying that right?
Yes. Yep.
Finally, I got one right. Thanks. Small victory for me. How did it fish for you? What were you able to find, and how were you able to get that win?
Yeah. So I had basically 2 days of practice. I left Wednesday night and drove all the way through there. Didn't sleep. I was just basically pumped to get out on the water and fished all day with no sleep. And then basically the next Friday as well. So that Thursday, Friday, I could only get bit like basically dead sticking in Ned rig. I didn't really have anything else. I knew where some fish were on some gravel pits and a couple, another spot or so. Had some ideas on some other high percentage areas, but hadn't fished them yet. And tournament morning, I was throwing the Ned rig for about a half hour, didn't get bit, and I just started playing around with other lures, the crankbait and jerkbait, dragging a Texas rig craw and stuff like that. And um, got bit on a crankbait, about a 6 foot diver, flat sided, and that was my first key to there might hit a reaction. Switched over a couple minutes later to a jerkbait, and then picked off an 18-incher to a 16 and a half within about that 30-minute time span from catching the first fish, and just basically stuck with that jerkbait the rest of the day and kept on getting bites. But I mean, I didn't know what to expect going into it because I had kind of a sucky practice and only caught like 5 fish, but just dead sticking in a head rig and changed it up until I went to a jerkbait.
Those you mentioned the flat-sided crankbaits. I know there's a name for it, and I just completely forgot what the
Mhm.
name is. Um, anyways, there seem to be key from what I've heard in that area, like cold water. It
Yes.
for whatever reason. I don't know why. Do you find that that's true that they're more effective than the regular crankbaits?
Yeah, I mean, out here I seem to be leaning more towards now, especially in the spring and later in the fall, the tighter wobble cranks like the flat side.
Yeah.
And this one was an OG Slim Rapala crank. It's the only fish I caught on a crankbait the whole trip, but I mean, definitely around in the Utah, Colorado area, I would say they do definitely work really good in the colder weather.
Yeah, that's the what I've heard on it. I've got a couple of them, never been able to get a bite on them, but it's really interesting. I've heard a lot about that. That the cold water states they really those flat sided crankbaits really shine. Let me ask you this, and I know maybe you don't want to give too much secret, so I'll leave it up to you how
Mhm.
you know, specific you want to go into it or not. But I'll just ask the question: you're going to Chatfield Lake. Have you fished that lake before you went there down?
No, that was my
Are you
first time
familiar with
there.
it? So when it's all, was it? I'm assuming all rock lake, right? Rocks everywhere and all that. Or
It's mainly rock, a lot of like sandy, muddy bottoms, and then it's a little bit of grass growing off the bottom, just about everywhere that didn't have a solid, like a really good rocky spot on it.
and how were we able to break it down when everything looks familiar and it's rock everywhere? And I say that because here, like fishing in the south, you know, you go to a grass lake, you figure, well, let me see where I can, you know, one patch of grass is going to stand out more than the other one. And for you, when you apply that to like a rocky lake, what is it that you look for that's going to stand out and makes you think, okay, this spot should have more bass?
Mhm. So it's access to deeper water is kind of the key because they're coming up from their winter haunts, their transition areas, um, steeper steeper banks basically where they can go from at Chatfield it was anytime from 20 to 30 feet and then just push up really quickly into all the way up into 5 feet. And we were catching them in that anywhere from like I was about 6 to 8 on average, but I caught them all the way down to about 10, 12. And they have gravel pits on the south side of this lake that, I mean, it'll drop down into 30 foot in some spots on them. And then it'll just a bunch of random humps and places all over that they can just quickly push up and get up to feed and whatnot. And that was kind of similar throughout the whole lake. They'd get out off the end of points or off the edge of the dam and then just push up and into those rocks in the shallow water to feed real quick before they drop back down and just chill
So
till they are ready to go up and spawn.
when how much do you rely on like side imaging electronics to pinpoint those spots?
I use it quite a bit. I mean, I always have my screen split. It seems like on down imaging and side imaging, just so I get a detailed picture of whatever I'm looking at. And side imaging did help just because I could see right where the break was on the gravel pits and or just anywhere I was fishing on the lake, really, to see where that rock kind of tapered off and I'd fish right on that edge. They'd just kind of, they'd be cruising that edge of the deeper water and just sitting there looking for any easy meal they could pick off.
What? And let me ask you this: what type of sonar do you, fish finder, depth finder you use?
I use a Lowrance Elite FS.
And what's your
I
setup
don't
like?
have
Your
live
kayak
or
setup?
the active target yet, but yeah, yep. I
Well,
just
you won
haven't.
a lot of tournaments, so
Yeah,
saving a little for that budget for a live scope or live image.
yeah, yeah. I mean, eventually we'll get it. Hopefully here soon, anyways. But just keep saving money, keep kind of just building on it. Fishing paying for itself for just on the road travel expenses and whatnot. But we'll get a live scope or active target eventually, anyways.
I feel like, and speaking out of ignorance here, because I've never fished in Colorado and Utah, but in my mind, I would think that that would be a priceless tool versus fishing on a grass lake like I'm used to over here, because you know there's only so much you can see on grass with live scope. I'm not saying that you
Right.
can't find them, but it obviously it's a lot different when you have, you know, the picture that's painted, it's just rock and you can clearly see the bass coming out. And especially when we're talking about, you know, lakes that are, you'll find bass in deeper water than you usually would find in grassy lakes. Do you think that's true? Do you really think like that would really up your game in that aspect? Do you consider it a game changer, but considering where you fit a shot of?
Yes. Yeah. Out here, the deeper water lakes, anywhere that's, grass lakes is not as necessary just because you really can't see much past the grass. But um, yeah, out here, I mean, hearing to like Cody Henley and other people that have active target, the live imaging, anyways, that um, they were watching fish come up and eat their jerk bait and stuff like that. Just it would really help to understand what they're exactly doing, make those fine tune adjustments to maybe catch more fish or bigger fish or something like that.
Do you feel like well, obviously you found success
Mhm.
with what you're doing without the light scope, and a lot of success at that. How many people out there, when you go on the water, on average, let's say by percentage, how
Mhm.
many? What's the percentage of anglers out there using live scope in that in your where you live, Harold, fishing there?
Um, it's not that many, to be honest with you. I mean, there's maybe 5-10% of the field has live scope. I mean, a lot of people out here are just they're just your average fishermen, and they get a good setup or whatnot. But a lot of people are starting to get it slowly trickle in and realizing that it's a major help.
What is the this bass fishing scene as
Hmm.
far as since you started this kayak bass fishing in the mountain area, and now where as the years gone along, where you see it has progressed the popularity of it? Because I know, like I said, it's not your traditional like big bass factory, but
Right.
more and more we keep seeing anglers, specifically from Utah, just coming down and making the name for themselves out here in Texas, Florida, Alabama, in Tennessee, and all those great bass factory states. How do you see the popularity growing, and what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah. I mean, kayak fishing Utah, the club out here has grown over the past 4 years a lot. I mean, they just had a tournament down southern Utah in Sand Hollow, and there's like 80 kayaks or 77 kayaks, I
Really?
think, signed up for the tournament. Yeah, I was like, whoa, that was the biggest kayak fishing Utah tournament yet. I mean, it started out and there was like 13 of us, maybe 15, 18 of us that would sign up, but it's grown a lot. There's a lot of people out here that are seeing the bigger picture once you get on the more national level tournaments and just they all have the drive to get out and compete.
I think one of the things that I really um, I have to give a shout out here to KBF is their commitment to helping the sports grow where it's traditionally not the most productive as far as the growth of kayak bass fishing. We understand
Mm-hmm.
there's business side to it. We see Bassmaster kind of like they're trying to just stay where they're more popular. Hobie BOS has tried to expand and then see that doesn't work, kind of contracts and says, okay, we're gonna
Yep.
stick. And I get it. There's a business side to it. If there's not that many anglers, then what's the point of bringing the national level tournament? KBF,
Right.
to
Yep.
their credit, regardless how I might feel about how it's run, I give them credit because they're like, you know what, we're still gonna invest on this and see if we can grow the sport. Which I think it's great because at the end of the day, we want this to be at the national level. We joke
Right.
around that guys from California not supporting it, and maybe they should, and maybe there's something that the national level tournaments can do to kind of like bring the West Coast anglers into the picture. I mean, your thoughts on that? I'm assuming you're ecstatic. Seeing
Mm-hmm.
KBF kind of like invest in Utah and Colorado. What would you like to see from the other major trails like um, Hobie, Bassmaster, even the All American Kayak Series that's kind of starting growing? It's more centered around Missouri and that Midwest area. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's awesome to see KBF bring everything back to the West because they kind of had a trail series out here, mainly in California, um, for a year or two. I think 2018, 2019, kind of into 2020, I think. But then COVID hit and kind of shut everything down, and they pulled it all back to the East. Um, yeah, I mean, to see it come full swing back to the West like it has with KBF, I mean, it's awesome. It's getting a lot more people interested in it, and it's just going to grow from here. I mean, especially where you get a few of us that are traveling around promoting the sport and everything, and it's really going to help the West grow. And I mean, if we can get, say Hobie get a tournament out here again, because they did one in the California Delta, I think 2 years ago now. I mean, and it wasn't that big of a tournament. I think there was like 40 of us that signed up. Um, it was in the middle of a couple other tournaments too, like back to back weekends, and a lot of those California guys they don't travel that much just because I mean the prices are sky high, and I'm assuming. And I mean, from one state end of the state to the other, it's, as far as the drive for me to get to California, it's 8-9 hours plus sometimes, but for them. But so seeing more tournaments out here, it's nice because I mean, for myself, I don't have to drive 18-20 hours to get to a tournament or a national level tournament, anyways.
And you also won in Arizona. I was looking at kind of like your bio, and I've seen like, oh man,
Mhm.
this guy's winning actually in Arizona, not just Utah, not just Colorado, but also further down south, which kind of similar shapes up a little bit similar to more closer to what Utah has to offer than something like again like Alabama has to offer, but still some great fisheries out there. For you, how hard is it to kind of like travel from going from Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Florida? How what's that like for you as far as kind of like your financial burden? Not to get personal on your
Yeah,
financial status, but how do you prepare for all this road trips, and how do you try to consolidate and
right.
justify all
I
these
mean,
expenses?
fortunately, I mean, I don't have a lot of debts. I mean, just basically paying off my truck, and we're renting this house here and everything. So I don't have a ton of debt. So that helps out a lot to not have to be sitting down trying to make money in my job. Anyways, I can take off a little extra time here and there. But I mean, yeah, it's just basically I come home, I work the Home Depot and just kind of do that. Try not to travel as much in between, and then just go for it for the tournament. I mean, that's kind of how it's working for me at the moment. And then just if I win a tournament like this or something, then I always just seem to use that to pay for itself, and it's been working out so far. But
Yeah, it seems like going
per,
through your ballots, it seems like you've cashed, even if you haven't gotten first place on all of them, you seems to be at least being in the money in most, if not all, the tournaments that you've actually entered, both locally and on the KBF trail. So congratulations to you, man, on what you're doing. And again, I mad respect. Again, I really, when we look at the sport at a national level, I think it's so important to just bring everybody in and give recognitions to those that don't have it as easy as we have it, as far as you know finding bass, going to big bass factories, traveling. Most of the tournaments that I travel is 6 hours away. I don't have to go up mile up on mountain like you guys have to do. Don't have to worry that much about gas expenses, which are skyrocketing now. So for you and a lot of those, Cody Hengley, Catherine Fields, Aaron Mathis, and I mean the list goes on and on. And it's such amazing to see guys and girls from Utah and the mountain area just come up and make a name for themselves um, out here in some of the southern states and West Coast like California. That's pretty big, man, and it's something that I think we gotta respect and kind of give you that little bit of share that little bit of a limelight, because it is a commitment for you all, and it is a completely geographically different leg setup that you have to kind of like learn just to keep up with what everybody else pretty much grew up doing.
right, yeah. I mean, it's a lot more planning, and just kind of got to work towards everything and just make it happen.
What would you like for yourself as far as your personal goals to achieve in kayak fishing?
I mean, qualifying for the 10 was one of them. Overall, I mean, I'd like to win the national championship at some point, but we'll see how that goes, anyways. Um, I mean, this year it's just get back in the 10 house, qualify for the 10 again. Um, Hoping I can win one of the Hobie BOS trails. I had a goal to catch an 8 pound plus largemouth, which I believe I did down in Florida. It was that 24 inch I caught on the day 2 of the trail down there. I was guessing it was around 8.5, 9 pounds. So I think I made that goal, and then basically just to catch catch a 5+ pound smallie because my personal best smallmouth is like 4.5. So, but I mean, other than that, just do good in tournaments and just enjoy it and have fun with everything.
That brings me to another question I wanted to ask. When we talk about mountain states, what is it that you target most? Is it smallmouth, spotted, or largemouth bass, or any other
Uh,
type of bass you might have?
Utah doesn't have any spots. Um, we are mainly smallies and largemouth. A lot of the better bass lakes have largemouth in them, but there's a few that have really good smallmouth in them as well. Um, it's the smallies seem to you get like a really good population, but they take longer to grow usually. So you get a lot of that smaller size, anywhere from 10 to 14, 15 inches. It's kind of our average, and then if you can find that 16 plus average, you're usually probably doing pretty good in a tournament. But largemouth fishing, you get a little bit better average. You can usually catch a lot of 15, 16 inches once you kind of figure out what they're doing. But getting a fish over 20 inches in Utah is kind of a feat. That's the goal you get, where in Texas you might be looking to catch a 22 plus or something like that.
I get disappointed every time I catch it. Like, not disappointed, I shouldn't say that, but every time I was like, "Oh, it's a 20 incher."
Right.
It's an average bass. For you, it's like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. What has been your favorite lake up in that area?
um Closest to me, I like to fish for smallies, Pineview Reservoir, and then I would say Hiram Reservoir is my two favorites. And then a close second would be Manaway. Those are all within 2 hours of me. And then my overall favorite lake is probably Sand Hollow down southern Utah, but that's about 5 hours from me.
What's on your bucket list as far as lakes that you want to fish that you haven't had the chance to fish for?
I want to go fish one of the Great Lakes. I mean, I haven't really picked one out, but whether it's Michigan or Erie, St. Clair, I want to go fish for smallies up there.
Nice. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is the Smalley paradise in that area from what I heard. Never fished it, but
Yeah.
definitely I would see why it would be on the bucket list. That very interesting area. The Great Lakes is just a monster in itself, literally and figuratively,
Tough.
just kind of
Yeah,
completely different. It's
for
literally
sure.
an ocean. Um, what has been you mentioned? What's your personal best for both bass and I think you already mentioned it, but you
Hmm.
know, kind of
Yep.
recap. It's kind of like as far as size goes. What's been your personal best, the smallmouth and largemouth?
Yeah, my personal best largemouth down in Florida, that 24 incher, just this last spring and end of January, start of February, and then my personal best smallmouth is at Idaho. Um, it's 19 and a half inches. I didn't have a scale on me either, but she was all spawned out, so I'm guessing she was just barely over 4.5, somewhere right there. But that's my longest smallmouth.
It's interesting when you talk about weight and scale. Sometimes I regret not having a weight scale. And I'll go back to one of my biggest bass that I've ever caught. And I was just starting bass fishing. I was bank fishing. I didn't have a scale. I didn't have a catch board or any type of board. Looking at the pictures, knowing now what I know about bass, and I'm talking about 4 or 5 years ago. Um,
Hmm.
I'm assuming that bass was, and I look at the pictures, and I've asked other people, and this says, yeah, that's a good 24 incher, if not more. And the thing about it, that thing probably didn't weigh more than 3 pounds because she was spawned out. It was just the late spring, early summer. And I was like, this is probably the biggest bass that I'll ever caught in my life. And it wouldn't even be 4 pounds. And that's why I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I don't even care about weight scales. I'm just gonna go with measurements. Sometimes
Oh,
I do catch I've caught 21, 22 inches, so I'm thinking, God, this is a heavy bass. I wonder how close it's to a double digit. I don't think I've ever caught the double digits just because I don't weigh it. But it's been one of those things where now it's just like I don't even care. Well, I do care, but it's more like how long is it more than
Right.
I value more the length than the weight, I guess. And I know that kind of throws off people and it goes against the grain, but that's just the way I see it. Just
Right.
because you catch a big bass, it's a big bass regardless. But if you go by weight scale, well, it depends if you caught it pre-spawning, spawning, or post-spawning. So it's like, well,
Yeah,
it's the same
exactly.
bass, but it has more value depending on what. If you go by weight, it has more value depending when you caught it. Whereas if you
Oh,
go
for
by
sure.
length, it has the value that it has. A 24-inch bass is a 24-inch bass.
Yeah,
Whereas
exactly.
whereas its weight scale, well, if you caught it this type of season, it may be more valuable, it may be less valuable. That's the way I like to see it. But
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure people will agree or disagree on that one. Maybe that's just the kayak fishing in me. What is what's next for you right now? You've conquered
Mhm.
Arizona, you conquered Utah, you made it all the way to Canada, you made it all the way to Florida. You talked about your goals. You mentioned you wanted to qualify or at least take part in the Hobie BOS. Have you taken part in any Hobie BOS this year, or do you have one in your calendar?
Yeah. Um, we went down to the tan, went down to Florida, came back through Texas, fished the Bassmaster at Lake Fork. Didn't do good at all. I mean, I didn't even catch a fish on that tournament, but we didn't even pre-fish for it, and the lake had ice on it.
Nobody did good.
After,
Only,
yeah,
only
yeah,
Garrett Morgan did good.
right. Um, then we went back down to Toledo Bend for that BOS tournament, and I took 17th there. I mean, did all right. We caught a bunch of fish. I mean, it had like 86 inches or something the first day, and then had, I think, high 70s the second day. And I mean, it was enough to cut a check and did all right there. But the next tournament I'm going to is next weekend, the Broken Bow down in Oklahoma for the Hobie BOS.
Oh, hopefully I get to see you there. I actually did fish the Toledo Bend, and it's crazy how similar and different Toledo Bend and Lake Fork were. And this is where I'm going with this. Both
Mm-hmm.
were really cold weather, especially the second day
Oh, yeah.
at Toledo Bend. It was cold. I'm sure, like in both lakes, you felt like you were in Utah
Oh, yeah.
because it was cold. That Lake Fork was super cold. I mean, I think I saw Jordan Marshall. I think it was posted a video of him just literally breaking through ice in Lake Fork,
Yeah.
right? And then we have, and that same was similar. The results were completely upside down from what Toledo Bend was. Like on Lake Fork, like three people only on those 2 days caught a limit. Garrett Morgan, I forgot the other two names. Garrett Morgan ended up winning it. Like it was
Mm-hmm.
like literally you could have skunk on Saturday and still, if you put a 5 fish limit on Sunday, you could have still catch a check and actually
Yeah,
qualify
for
for
sure.
the national championship. That's how crazy it was. Whereas Toledo Bend, you didn't see the Garrett Morgan numbers you saw in in Fork. However, if you didn't make 5 bass limit, a decent 5 bass limit, you're not gonna even get a check on day two. Because if I remember correctly, the top 101 out of 200 actually caught a limit. Like
Yeah.
that's
There was a
completely
lot of
different.
fish.
Yeah, and we're talking about two lakes that are 2 hours away from each other, 1 week apart, both on cold weathers, and you could have not seen a more drastic change in results from it. Um, how did I mean when you compare what happened in Lake Fork and what happened to Toledo Bend as relates to you? What stood out the most?
um, that the weather continued to follow us.
Yeah,
um,
right.
right. Um, I mean, they seem to be a little bit farther along in the spawn or more pre-spawn, pushing up shallower um, at Toledo Bend than they were at Fork. It just seems like that little bit of geographical difference um, made the difference for whatever reason, and they were just a little bit more active at Toledo Bend. But
Have you
I don't
fished?
know.
Go ahead.
I don't know much about those lakes at all. I mean, that was both my first time fishing those, so I don't really have a history to go off of on there.
And I kind of feel bad for you in this aspect. Not that I should feel bad for all your success, but
Mhm.
um, when like fork can be, I think that's just more popularity than anything. But I know Bassmaster ranked Lake Fork as the number one bass
Right.
lake in 2021. I think there's other lakes that produce more, but anyways, Lake Fork is legendary, and it's actually my favorite bass fishing lake. So I kind of feel bad that you didn't get to see the how Lake Fork can really show out, because it really can
Right.
show out. And you may not see like a 2 day with 200 and something, although Gary Morgan did. I think he got 206. I can't remember, but
Yeah, I
it
think
is
so.
one of those. Yeah, it is one of those lakes that even like a average bag, as far as kayak fishing goes, measurement it's easily 90 pounds, and that's like when you go to Lake Forest, says I got 90 inches. You may not even catch a check. Probably you're
Right.
probably
Yeah.
not going to even catch a check. Um, it's a very consistent lake, a very great lake. So kind of feel bad. You need to come down to
Right.
Texas and fish it again when it's
I want to. Yeah.
prime.
It'd be fun.
Now you did mention you did Toledo Bend, decent 17th. I mean that's more than decent considering how more than half the field got a limit. So to get 17, that's big. Especially again considering that you come from Utah and Toledo Bend is nothing like Utah
No,
or
not
even
at all.
mountain lake area. And then you got Broken Bow. Are you have another tournament at Hobie BOS? Are you looking to get to the TOC just by like trying to get top 3 on Broken Bow, or do you have another one? Hopefully, you can get in by by being in the top 50.
Yeah. If I'm hoping I can qualify top 3, that'd be awesome. But plan on fishing. I can't remember Dardanelle in I think it's
Yeah.
September as the third one. If I need to qualify through AOY and just hopefully place good in AOY in general.
That's crazy. It's so funny
Yeah.
because that's the exact same plan I had. It was like
Oh, nice.
I'll go, I'll go to Chile just because I don't, with gas price and everything, I really don't like to drive more than 6-7 hours. I think 7 hours is the most. So I figured, okay, I'll try Toledo Bend, 4 hour drive for me. Hopefully, I'll do good and kind of stay within in the top 50. I know it's also considering who won the top 3, so it's not literally the top 50 in Angler of the Year points, but for the sake of the conversation, keeping it simple. And then
Right.
Broken Bow, and then the same thing, Darnell. And going by how I did in Toledo Bend, I need to stop. I need to get into top 3 in Broken Bow or Darnell. There's no other way. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what I'm hoping for. But definitely wish you the best on that, man. Like I said, going from going traveling and making the commitment. I really hope it really works out for you, and I love to see you get on the TLC on that one. I think it's a lot of more sacrifice on your end than it is for most of us down here. So definitely like to see that sacrifice pay off, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I hope you do good as well, and maybe we'll both be in the TOC.
Yeah, definitely. Hope to see you over there in Broken Bow. Have you done research on Broken Bow already? You don't have to tell me what you've done, but have
Oh,
you
I mean,
your
I've
Google
done very
Earth
brief.
thing?
I've done very brief research. Um, I mean, just picking up YouTube videos and map studies here and there, and I mean, I kind of have an idea of how it's going to fish. I'm on the Oklahoma KFL team and going to fish with them this year, and we all met up back in December. I flew down and borrowed a kayak from one of them and had our own competition within the team on 10 Killer Lake, and it sets up very similar to Broken Bow. It's
Yeah.
kind of just that Ozark style lake, and so hopefully we can use that just to have an idea of how it's going to fish. But it'll be
Yeah, a lot
interesting for
of
sure.
yeah, it's one of those lakes that's not necessarily. I never fished broken bow, but going by the research I've kind of done, videos, YouTube, Google Earth, it seems like it's more shaped up like a rocky reservoir where it's just standing timber
Yeah.
and rock, not gonna find grass, which is not good for me. But that's the grind of it. Can't complain about that. No
Right.
excuses. Cayman, I wanted to give you a couple of minutes to. Oh, well, actually, before we get into that, I always like to do kind of like a rapid session question. You ready for it?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So, if you couldn't fish for bass, what would be the other species that you would target?
I'd probably be in Alaska, fishing for silvers and king salmon.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is your favorite bait?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I mean, I always love a crankbait bite, or probably a chatterbait. Those are my two kind of go-tos.
Crankbait or jerkbait? Yeah, I would see
Yeah.
how that would work over there. What's your favorite rod and reel setup?
Um, I mean, I'm kind of currently fall in love with a lot of the 6 scale. Now that I'm on their pro staff, anyways. I mean, I really like their hammer reels, and I mean, all the rods are great. They're what's the series? They're if I'm throwing a Texas rig or a jig, I think it's Fenner or something like that. I can't pronounce it. They're like, I believe the names are based around like Viking culture or something like that. Anyways, but um, those are my favorite like flipping setups. Their chopper rod is my favorite spinnerbait rod, and their Hemdahl, I believe, is a great jerkbait, kind of lipless crankbait rod and whatnot. But
That kind of leads me to my second question, and I know this is kind of compromising because you already mentioned you sponsored a pro staff with Six Skill. But if
uh-huh.
other than Six Skill, if you can only be sponsored by one company, again, other than Six Skill, what company would it be?
um, I mean, before 6 scale, I threw a lot of Daiwa. Um, I hadn't really set down on a rod company other than 6 scale, but I mean, other than that, I would say if I had a second choice, I would go with probably Daiwa products.
Yeah, they make some nice reels, definitely. Haven't tried the rods, but
Yeah,
their reels are pretty awesome. I like how it's a lot easier to thread the line through the spool just because it has that
right.
wide, whatever it is that it's called, thing that to thread the line to, or line management, whatever. Um, but yeah, there's some pretty cool reels. Actually, my favorite one is the Silo. I got it like a nice deal they had at the Bassmaster for Fun and Sun tackle booth at the Bassmaster when it was last year here in Texas. But yeah, man, their Silo
Mhm.
reel. I mean, that reel is awesome. What's your
Right.
favorite reel?
Um, my favorite. I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean, I throw a lot of the Wrath with 6 scale, and the Hammer series. They are both great reels. I've had to fine tune the Wrath. They're a lot more, but you're able to do that with them. They have the complex magnetic system, and with the pins and everything you can adjust. But they're great reels, or just the Daiwa Tatula is what I previously been throwing before I got on with 6 scale.
If you had a chance to win one national championship, KBF, which in my the big attraction to that one's obviously the payout.
Mm-hmm.
Bassmaster, which to me their big attraction is the um, how do you call this, the advertisement or the social media game, because they have so many companies that sponsor them, so that gives you a broader reach. And if you're looking for sponsors, and then there's the Hobie BOS, which I think, in my opinion, it's kind of like the most prestigious one, considering that's the hardest to qualify for, and you really, really, literally going up 50 of the best anglers in the world. If you can only win one of those three, which one would you rather win?
Oh, sorry, kind of cut out between. You said between the BOS, the TOC, and
and
what other
the
ones?
KBF. Oh, the BOS, the between the TOC for Hobie, the KBF National Championship, and the Bassmaster Kayak National Championship. Which one would you rather fish or win?
Um, I would say probably the TOC, just because I mean it's a lot harder to qualify for, and I mean not to take anything away from KBF or Bass, but I would probably do the TOC.
Yeah, I think I gravitate to that answer as well, just because I
Yeah,
think it's the little bit more of the prestigious one. I've talked to somebody, I can't remember, I think it was Charlie Wells. It's like winning the comparing the TOC to, let's say, uh, to the national championship for the KBF or for the Bassmaster Kayak Series. It's like comparing, for those that play golf, comparing the Masters, winning the Masters in golf, to winning the the Players Championship. You know, the Players Championship is the one that golfers would say that the one that established me as the best golfer, which the Master kind of established you as more of a popularity thing. I don't play golf, but
right. Yeah,
that's one analogy that I heard that kind of makes sense. But yeah, no, definitely, there's no wrong answer on that one. But I can definitely gravitate to what you're saying on that one.
yeah, for sure.
Um, we talked about what's on your bucket list and everything. I want to give you a few minutes to shout out any of your sponsors. Thank anybody that you want to thank.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like I mentioned, there's a lot more sacrifice involved for you being in Utah. So take as much time as you need to thank whoever you want to thank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, first sponsors. I'm sponsored by Enduro Power. They basically power my whole kayak and everything, and amazing batteries. Haven't had one issue with them. Their 50 amp hour runs my Newport vessel, the NK 180S. I mean, for probably 18, 19 miles before it'll die. I mean, which is plenty for me in a tournament. Six Skill Fishing. They make some awesome rods and reels, and they do have a few lures and hooks and whatnot, and apparel and whatnot that you can get from them. That's pretty cool, anyways. But the rods and reels they're great products. They seem to be a little underrated because they're not as well known. They're kind of a newer company, but they're making some leaps and bounds and coming a long ways. They're great products. Henley Custom Lures and BA Custom Baits, two locally owned shops here in Utah. Cody Henley, the guy that won the 10, he's here in Utah as well, and he's the owner of Henley Custom Lures. Makes awesome soft plastics, and then BA Custom Baits, he makes jigs, spinner baits, chatter baits, and I mean, I really like his jigs. That's what I mainly get from him. But I mean, he'll make it all for you, from anywhere from Ned heads, underspins, jigs, spinner baits. Makes some really good products. And I guess lastly, I'll just thank my family and my wife for the support, and all my friends and whatnot that just follow me along and the whole adventure of kayak fishing.
Oh man, thank you for for the commitment that you do to for this sport. I'm sure it helps in the growth of that mountain area and all across the United States. Just watching what you personally have been done to as far as your level of commitment and your success that is paid off. You
Mm-hmm.
do also have your own business for
Right.
brush
Yep.
painting lures, right? Tell us a little bit about that before I let you
Yeah.
go, and also where can people follow you on social media and your products that you
Yeah, for
do.
sure. Currently, my Instagram is Caymen's Custom Lures, which leads into I paint hard baits, anything from big swim baits all the way down to little jerk baits, crank baits, anything hard plastic, basically I can paint it. Haven't done a lot with it in the past few months, but I mean, I'll still paint anything you want. You can look at anything I do on my Instagram page, or I do have a Facebook page, just Caymen's Custom Lures as well. Caymen Rasmussen is my Facebook page. I post most of my fishing stuff on there as well as all my tournament stuff on my Caymen's Custom Lures Instagram page. I'll be starting to drop here YouTube videos on a YouTube channel as well, but I'll post all the info on my social media pages as to that anyways, but haven't really got that all set up yet.
Awesome, man. That's looking forward to those videos, and again, wish you the best moving forward. Wish you the best in Broken Born, Darnell, and the lots of sex man moving forward. And I really hope, like, I'm really rooting for you to make that TOC, man, and do great on it. You definitely earned it, and you deserve it. So hopefully you get to enjoy that trip down to Cato, and which is already kind of like an area you're already familiar with. So that gives you a little bit of a better edge this time around fishing on the National Championship or Tournament of Champions. Caymen, thank you so much for joining us, blessing the podcast, and talking to me and to my audience. And let's make sure we support everybody out there that's taking time and making the commitment and the investment to fish in those tournaments. And let's see how big we can get this sport on national level, both as a pastime as a tournament. So for those out there, that are listening, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you're going to be on the water again, please wear your PFDs. If you're going to have a couple of beers, drink responsibly, take care of yourselves, take all the necessary precautions to make it back to your loved ones. So have a great day, everyone. Remember, go check out the sponsor, DouglasOutdoors.com. Peace out.